subprime mortgage crisis of the late 2000s had a tremendous impact on economic all around the world. This crisis, which was caused by intricate financial products, irresponsible lending practice, and systemic oversight, brought attention to weaknesses in the global financial system. The housing market bubble of the early 2000s is the root of this issue. Mortgage-backed security (MBS) were a well-liked investment product during this frenzy. These subprime mortgages were bundled by financial institutions into MBS, which were subsequently offered for sales to global investors. Many were blinded to the underlying hazards by the temptations of increased profit on this investment.
First and foremost, the presentation is about the causes of the subprime mortgage crisis of 2007 to 2010. The subprime mortgage crisis of 2007 to 2010 was caused by an increase in mortgage credit, allowing borrowers with bad credit histories, minimal down payments, or high payment loans to apply for mortgage. Lenders often deny this request, leading high-risk families to apply for small-size mortgage backed by the Federal Housing Administration (FHA). Subsequently, low mortgage foreclosure rates led to a 65% decrease in homeowners, affecting home development and pricing. The crisis also caused by lenders began offering high-risk mortgage to investors, which were financed by pooling loans. New financial instruments such as private label mortgage-backed securities (PMBS) were used to spread this risk, making securities with underlying mortgage losses less risky. Hence, it increased the number of individuals applying for mortgage to become homeowners. Moreover, the surge in house demand led to a higher house prices, resulting in the rise of prime mortgage-backed securities (PMBS). Prime mortgage-backed securities buyers initially profited from this increase, while homeowners with high-risk mortgage gained money through sales or loans. However, due to the soaring housing values and easy access to mortgage, individuals often overlook the risk of PMBS, causing a lack of understanding of their potential risks. When house prices peaked, it became less feasible to satisfy debt through a mortgage refinance or a house sale. New Century Financial Corporation filed for bankruptcy due to rising mortgage loss rates, leading to some subprime lenders closing and downgrading prime mortgage-backed securities. Consequently, price for selling houses decreased, and forecasts of additional decrease grew. Despite a sizable down payment, borrowers found it more difficult to sell their houses to pay their mortgage. Furthermore, the government-sponsored funds, including Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, suffered significant losses before being taken over by the federal government in 2008. They issued debt to finance subprime mortgage-backed securities, which lost value and experienced losses on failed prime mortgage. They purchased, insured, and packaged into prime mortgage-backed securities. The strategy of lenders to raise mortgage qualifications led to a decrease in house demand, resulting in a surge in property sales and increased repossessions and foreclosures. It led to the use of short sales, where lenders could only suffer a limited loss if the house sold for less than the mortgage amount. As a result, the collapse of subprime lending reserved most of the advantages of the subprime surge by dragging housing prices into a downward trend. To conclude, the housing crisis reduced financial institutions' lending capacity, limited business borrowing capacity, decreased wealth and consumer spending, and resulted in the subprime mortgage crisis of 2007 to 2010.
The next is about the mortgage-backed security. A mortgage-backed security is generated through the consolidations of mortgage under the ownership of a financial institution, such as a flag of bank, following classification into categories such as residential or commercial. An investment bank or other financial institutions will purchase and repacking this debt. The next is about the mortgage-backed security were crucial and contentious to the mid-2000 subprime mortgage crisis, which causes the 2007 until 2010 global financial crisis. CDO, which combine MBS and other debt instruments, were created during securitizations. MBS appeal to investors because they spread risk and provided mortgage income. The MBS and other financial instruments dropped once the housing bubble broke and surprised borrower defaulted. The subprime mortgage crisis revealed major shortcomings in risk management, regulatory monitoring, and the complexity of financial products like MBS, driving worldwide financial reform. The crisis led to legislative measures, credit rating agency inspections, and risk management re-evaluations to prevent future financial crises.
A financial instrument known as a credit default swap or CDS serves as insurance against a borrower's default. A credit default swap is an agreement whereby a seller receives a premium from a buyer in return for protection against the possibility that a particular credit instrument, like a bond or loan, may default. In the event of an underlying credit instrument default, the buyer receives compensation from the seller. Due in large part to the credit default swap's involvement in the 2008 financial crisis, laws like the Dodd-Frank Wall Street Reform and Consumer Protection Act were introduced to solve problems and enhance market monitoring. A complicated financial instrument known as a collateralized debt obligation is produced by banks through the pooling of individual loans or other debt instruments and their subsequent sale to investors in the secondary market. Usually, collateralized debt obligations are separated into tranches with different levels of risk and reward. While investors in lower tranches face higher risk but may also see bigger profits, those in higher tranches have priority when it comes to repayment. Because collateralized debt obligations were often backed by subprime mortgage loans, they contributed to the collapse of the housing and financial markets, which in turn played a major role in the 2008 financial crisis.
Thanks, Kazumi. I'm Leon. I'm going to continue the presentation with the effect of subprime mortgage crisis. Subprime mortgage crisis is a crisis that have a lot of historical and educational significance, whereby a lot of the researchers find out there are numbers of effects due to this crisis. The first one will be ongoing foreclosure. This means that a subprime mortgage crisis led to a surge in the foreclosure as many homes owners with subprime or they have an adjustable rate mortgage found themselves they are unable to meet their mortgage payment. This foreclosure will make them to decline their property value in order to sell the properties and destabilize the financial institution that held the mortgage. This also will make the economic downturn. Next is the rise of slumburbs. It's very unfortunate to say that a suburban areas that is experienced a huge decline in property value or an increase in foreclosure will make them suffer in the abandoned house, reduce in their property values, especially if they are heavily reliant on the housing market, and this will also decline their overall neighborhood income and quality. The next effect of subprime mortgage crisis is it caused a higher unemployment rate that time. The collapse of major financial institutions and the decline in consumer spending result in the reduce of business activity and also layoff. The housing and construction activities and industry in particular experience a very sharp contraction, contributing to the higher unemployment rate. The job losses extend beyond the financial sector and also construction sector, which will affect a various industry connecting to the house and also consumer spending. Next, I will pass to Eugene.
Thank you, Leon. My name is Eugene, and I'll be talking about the other two effects of subprime mortgage crisis. Firstly, tighter credit came about because many of the subprime loan borrowers defaulted on their mortgages. Hence, it triggered a domino effect throughout the whole financial system. And as a result, lenders became much more wary and risk-averse, and the tightened credit condition emerged as a more defensive response to the loss suffered during this crisis. And banks nowadays also start to scrutinize borrowers more thoroughly, demanding a higher credit score and are more strict with their loan approval. Next, tougher time to make ends meet means that due to the fact that the financial institutions were issuing out loans to people with bad credit score, it caused a spike in foreclosures, and numerous households also experienced the loss of their job, property, and security of their income, which frequently resulted in a much prolonged jobless and in financial difficulties. According to some sources, although the economy has recovered, new jobs were much more lower paying and less secure. That's all from me, and I will pass the next session to my groupmate, who will be talking more the info of this topic. Thank you.
Alright, thank you, Eugene. Next, I will talk about the lesson learned by this case study of subprime mortgage crisis. Based on the subprime mortgage crisis of 2007, exposed significant weaknesses in the financial system, leading to several important lessons, which is the first one would be the risk management. For example, the financial institution failed to properly assess and manage the risk associated with a subprime mortgage. They rely heavily on a credit rating agency, which ultimately proved inaccurate. The highlight of this is that the need of the stronger risk management practices and the independent risk assessment. And then the second lesson is from the regulatory oversight. The crisis revealed the gap in regulatory oversight of financial institutions and the complex financial instrument. This led to call for increased regulation and a tighter the control on leading practices, securitization, and the derivative. The third lesson is about the consumer protection, which is by predatory lending practices targeted borrowers with a complex and misleading mortgage product, putting them at risk of default. This underscored the need for stronger consumer protection measures and financial literacy initiative. And the fourth lesson is about the transparency and disclosure. The crisis exposed a lack of transparency and disclosure in financial market. Then the complex financial instruments and securitization make it difficult to assess the risk and understand the true value of asset. This emphasized the need of a greater transparency and standardized disclosure practices. Number 5 is about the global interconnectedness. The crisis demonstrated the interconnectedness of a global financial market. The collapse of a financial institution in the US had a ripple effect on the economies around the world. This highlights the need for international cooperation and the coordination in the financial regulation. So, in conclusion, the subprime mortgage crisis of 2007 was a devastating event with long-lasting consequences. While the global financial system has undergone the reform to address the weaknesses exposed by the crisis, it's remained a complex and interconnected system with inherent risks. Continued vigilance, regulatory oversight, and a commitment to ethical practices are essential to prevent a future crisis. So, the crisis also highlights the need for a greater financial literacy among the individual and the families to make an informed financial decision. It emphasizes the importance of responsibility, leading practices and the protection of consumer from the predatory lending. Ultimately, the lesson learned from the subprime mortgage crisis should be used to build a more stable and sustainable financial system that benefit everyone, not just privileged few. So yeah, this is all from us. Thank you.